I'd say the three things I think about most as a producer and storyteller is one, the people. You can't tell great stories without great teams. Two, how I turn logistical and budgetary constraints into positive creative obstacles and challenges. And three, the truth. It's always about reaching for authenticity.
You know, one thing I do, which editors find a bit annoying, and even cinematographers as well, but the actors love it. I do continuous takes, 7, 8 on the trot without cutting, but it keeps them in the moment. They love the energy whilst the teacups are being refilled and the cameraman's getting back to position 1. But the performances, they just get better and better in energy.
Es muy importante el tema de la concentración, además de socializar con los compañeros y las compañeras, también buscar un poco en algún momento estar tranquilo para repasar tu letra, para guardar la energía, para concentrar y después salir a improvisar, a trabajar en equipo, por supuesto, pero en algún momento está bueno achicar un poquito para cuidar la energía de uno, que no se disperse tanto.
Patrice Cordoban, NATPE board member. On behalf of NATPE, I would like to welcome you all to this MVPD session at NATPE Virtual Miami. We're very pleased about the program today. I would like to thank our great panelists who are joining us from across the country. And I would like to thank Howard Horowitz, our moderator for today, who will present each of them in just a moment. This is part 2 of our MVPD series. We're very pleased to bring this topic to NATPE Miami. MVPDs and video distributors continue to play a critical role in the distribution and monetization of content through linear TV, on-demand, and OTT services. Today, we're honored to have leading video brands and MVPDs with us. So let's go straight to our discussion, the afterlife of the deal, and explore how content is aggregated and distributed in a rapidly changing ecosystem. If you like this topic, please join us again. Stay tuned by going to natpe.com to find out about more MVPD events in the future. And now, Howard, if you'd like to take it from here.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, NATPE, for having us all here today. And thank you to our panelists, who will get thanked several times during this session. It is certainly my pleasure to be moderating this important panel on worldwide content distributed by MVPDs. It is a leading edge discussion because of the outsized importance of MVPDs in the delivery of content, their role in the ecosystem, the market, your markets for your content. As Patrice said, this panel is the second in an ongoing series of, I believe it's called the NATPE V-Front sessions. And in episode 1, which took place last month and kicked off the series, focused on content acquisition, how we strike deals, how we're thinking about deals differently in the age of OTT, as well as opportunities and brand new challenges in the ecosystem. Today, our conversation shifts a bit and focuses on the afterlife of the deal, how the content lives, gets promoted, gets packaged, and gets navigated on NVPD platforms such as X1 and Flex from Comcast. Joining me today for this conversation are Rebecca, and I think I'll be calling her Beck if that's, oh, it's on her screen, excellent. Rebecca Heap, she's the Senior Vice President for Video and Entertainment at Comcast Cable. Of course, she's here representing the leading MVPD on a global scale. Also joining us today is Bert Berendes, partner at Condista. They are leaders in content sales for the longest time across the US and Latin America. Joining us here today, a veteran of the world of content marketing, Jennifer Mirgarod, Head of Sales and Account Management for MVPDs and Special Markets at Warner Media. Warner Media and Jennifer's portfolio includes HBO, HBO Max, CNN, and all the Turner brands. Also with us today is Eric Bolton, VP of Business Development at Zixi. Zixi, I'm not sure all of you know, is the world leader in software enabling the delivery of live and live linear broadcast content over IP, and we'll be hearing more from Eric about that. Again, thank you, panelists, for being here today and for sharing your insights with a worldwide audience, which I wanted everybody to know, those listening and those of us on the panel, that this session is being broadcast all over the world. Not sure if they're using Zixi technology, but being broadcast. I also would like to start, before we get into the conversation, I come from the consumer perspective. I'm the president of Horowitz Research, and we do tracking studies of how consumers access content, how they access technology and content. And just a couple of minutes just to show you where they are at. So the title of my slide deck is The Afterlife of the Deal, MVPDs and the Programming, Packaging, and Promotion of Content. The market for TV and video services is more complex than ever. And the large majority of TV content viewers still subscribe to a traditional pay TV service. As you can see from this slide, the overwhelming majority of TV content viewers are subscribers to an MVPD. 58% of consumers subscribe to both an MVPD and at least one SVOD service. And if we're looking at people who only subscribe to one or the other, 23% of content viewers are MVPD subscribers versus only 14% who are only streaming subscribers. Also illustrating the complexity of this market on the MVPD platforms and in the content providers delivering content for this market. On average, streamers, those who stream content, use an average of 6 services, a little over 3 free and almost 3 paid services each month. Now, that's not all subscription, that's access, which is another topic in entirety. Our advice to all of you is that as providers of content and as MVPDs, we must lean into our strengths and leverage new technology to deliver value beyond what strictly a la carte streaming services can possibly offer as standalones. 2/3 of the audience still like being able to watch live TV whenever they can. Over 60% enjoy sitting back and flipping through channels. Believe it or not, these days, why would they do that? They do, it's available, they like to have it available. On the other side of the coin, 45% are stymied by how to keep track of their streaming services, what's on which service, which to continue subscribing to, what's delivering value. And finally, in this set of data, almost half say it bothers them that they cannot navigate across this app environment. Clearly, I'm setting up what the role of MVPDs might be these days. And let me segue to the panel with this slide that says the core principle of MVPDs is a centralized managed access to the array of content on their platforms. And with that, and that is what this panel is all about. So let me turn to the panel now. And if I could turn to Beck first, my honor. Beck, if you could please describe for this worldwide audience your background and your leadership role in how acquired content is programmed and editorialized at Comcast.
Thanks so much, Howard. Really appreciate the opportunity to join such a great panel today and loved all of the challenge that you set us up front with the research there as well. I think I should probably change my title to SVP of the Aftermath of the Deal. Hearing the title of this panel, it very well describes what I look after and the team does at Comcast with the Xfinity video and entertainment services. Really, we're responsible for, once a deal is done, taking that content, and increasingly we're ambiguous, whether it's an app partner or a more traditional linear partner, taking the content, launching it on our platform, aggregating it together for our customers in a way that really helps them find the content that they're after, and then making sure that we continue to look after the partnerships on an ongoing basis. We do that across a range of different products now. Obviously, Xfinity's X1 product is really the first of its kind from an MVPD point of view, aggregating together VOD, linear, and an increasing number of apps together into one service. So that is our very strong leadership product. In addition, we're making great headway into the market with Xfinity Flex, a much more streaming first service designed for a different market segment. And that's getting a lot of traction with our customers. And finally, Xfinity Stream, which is our mobile anywhere service. All of those are 3 different applications. They serve 3 different purposes for our customer base, but they all have those sort of core challenges that you set up front of how do you get content aggregated together in a logical way for customers, make it discoverable, and then care for the partnerships and the consumers on an ongoing basis. So it's a lot of fun, a great role, and a great team that I get to work with, including great partners, I should say, many of which are on the panel.
Thanks, Beck. And Burke, tell us about your background and how you perceive Condista's role in the deal and in the afterlife of the deal. You can take us on a progression if you.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Howard. And I repeat what Beck says. It's nice to be invited with this group of people, all from different aspects of what we're doing. I've already started to take some notes because we're all facing the same issues. So it's nice to learn from each other. But Beck had mentioned that Comcast is ambiguous as to where the content goes. Condista, we're looking at it the same way, except from the other side. We're ambiguous as far as how the content is distributed, and that's what Condista's done for a number of years. I mean, I've been Spanish TV since 1994. I look much younger because we're on Zoom, so it's nice. I don't realize how far away and in the past that was. We've had Condista since 2002, and the guy who founded our company, George Fitteri, started with the idea that, look, all these Spanish packages, digital packages, were starting around that time. He started the company in 1999. And that was the first time there was a no buy through Spanish language package, but there wasn't a lot of Spanish language networks available. So he took on the role, go out and find them, go into Latin America, go to Spain. Where is there good Spanish language content that can be brought to the US, make sure it's filtered, and, apply what we ended up calling our Condista programming filter. I partnered with him in 2002, and it was 3 channels we worked with. 3. Now, like, Comcast is upward of 65, Charter's got 85, and there's a couple more than 3 available today. But, our role really hasn't changed. It's about going out and finding the great content that people are going to watch. The deals, admittedly, were a lot easier a couple years ago. They are more complicated now because there are so many different platforms, and I know we'll get into this later. But that's what we still see our role at Condista is filtering out the great content that's going to reach the audience. Whether, today we've expanded, it's not just Spanish. We represent all the Italian language programming from RAI, and we have, for the first time, have our own channel with the English language Kids Network, Kids Street. But it's still the same filter. Let's get that quality content out there. There is a lot of extra now as far as how you differentiate where the content goes. But again, to use that word, we're ambiguous as to how it gets out there, so long as it gets out there. And that is as you said, Beck, that is the fun of what we're doing now. And admittedly, the challenge on how to do it so everybody still sees value in every part of the chain. And I know we're getting into it later, but that's what
we're gonna take your word on it that you're gonna speak about the afterlife.
The afterlife, yes. Well, you said this part was just the intro.
No, so. Absolutely. Absolutely great intro. I thought we needed to find out about Condista. So, Jennifer, your background and roots, like Burke's in the content sales and marketing business, run long, deep, and is actually also both domestic and international, as I've come to learn. So, with that bit of introduction, how would you describe your role at Warner Media? This in itself new aggregation of content in delivering your services to Beck and the likes of those MVPDs.
Yeah, I think similar to some of the things said before. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I think what I represent and what my team represents is sort of touches on all of the aspects that Beck laid out. We work with MVPD partners to drive awareness and usage for a group of linear television networks and their accompanied VOD content. So you named, I think, Howard, some of those, CNN, TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network, a combination of live linear viewing, which is so important for a news network or some of our sports properties that are on TNT and TBS, for example. But I also am responsible for the distribution of HBO Max, which morphed from HBO to become a streaming app that is one of those SVOD competitors in the marketplace that you touched on. We are agnostic as well in terms of platform. We want our content to be where the consumers want to watch it. And I think our partnership with Comcast is a good example of that. Beck touched on Flex. With HBO Max, that app is available through its X1 platform as well as the Flex platform. And we're so keen to lean into both of those and partner, and we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of what that partnership looks like. But that's what my team really focuses on. How do you drive engagement with the content? And then also in the case of HBO Max, how do you deliver more subscribers and selling subscriptions to the app? And we can do that also through a partner like Comcast.
Very interesting. And I think it's super important that we get into later the way that all works with with a DTC product actually delivered in partnership with a platform like Xfinity or Flex. They're extremely interesting. And Eric, if you could introduce yourself, and I'm guessing now, I could be totally wrong, it's sort of where I come from, I guess, is that your and Zixie's role in the ecosystem is probably not as obvious to our audience as all the rest of our roles are. So if you could explain to us how Zixie fits in that value chain and in the ecosystem between the providers and the MVPDs.
Happy to do so, and very happy and honored, as we all are. And I feel like this is like a little Hollywood shuffle where I've got Beck, Burke, and Jen. I mean, in theory, there's some kind of name wordplay there, but it's been great, and I think it says a lot about the evolution of the industry and the coupling of technology and business models that before were very separated, with many silos and firewalls, and both operationally and tech stack, and they have definitely conjoined. So we, Zixie, are a software company. We are a software-defined video platform, which won't mean much to a general distribution audience, but both Comcast and NBC are good clients. Warner Media is a very good client. Burke, I can't speak directly, but I know you're a client. So we got the things. So Zixie has, we are 700 of the world's largest media companies and 250 tech partners. What does that mean in terms of this? How one acquires programming and builds packages from a business operations and sales perspective across MVPDs, OTT, and of course you mentioned the D2C, which we'll elaborate a little later. All of those become relevant. And what before there was a business deal cut, and as Beck put it, the aftermath, and then people scramble to try to fulfill what someone may or may not have sold. Now the packages and programming and the agility of the industry is far more different, and it gives a greater range to be able to distribute program, a greater range of acquiring different programming, a greater range of how sponsorships and all those things can contribute. And it's become, and I would say, evidenced by my presence on this esteemed panel, those things have married together as people have to figure out, the satellite one-to-many singular broadcast. What does IP terrestrial mean? Where will 5G? So these are all things that I'm sure we'll dig into. But Zixie's relevance is, as all of these esteemed companies virtualize, you're going to need software that goes across cloud, it goes across carriers, it goes across cellular and other networks, and having brands that have sub-brands and umbrella brands and brand hubs and things that allow packages to be created, as all the traditional business models of television go through a very large morphing and evolution, being technology driven.
Interesting. And Zixie is, you may have said it and I missed it myself, is relevant to both sides of the equation, the programmers and the MVPDs, or you basically are, the programmers are your clients in getting their content?
We have both, actually. We have both. So we will take, and where before a single signal would go out, a now media company content owner, pick an NBC, for example, they have, and then Comcast has its own services level. Their programming goes to many folks and many new MVPDs and digital MVPDs. So how you acquire that content and how you then get it to those new distribution arms and outlets and then manage that at scale, that's the role that Zixie plays. So we end up on actually both sides of that equation.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, so we get into the meat of the matter of this session, the afterlife of content and how it lives on platforms. As I read the lead up to this panel, it's built on two basic premises. One, that there is more great programming and content available than ever before. I don't think anybody anywhere disagrees with that. And that the myriad of platforms to watch has made the normally lean back experience of watching TV increasingly complex. We'll leave it open whether the consumer is enjoying all that random access or is actually would love to be re-aggregated back under the folds of someone like Beck. But so let me ask Beck, How do you, the MVPDs, sort through all that complexity and bring all the networks, SVOD, shows, movies together and make it make sense for the consumer? I guess I'm challenging you in my own mind. That's the value you bring. So tell us how you do that, and if you're doing it successfully, and why you think it's being successful.
I think that's a huge part of the value that we bring. Spot on there, Howard, in terms of really trying to make a consumer's entertainment time enjoyable, so that it's not all about searching through where a piece of content lives and which subscription it's under. We help bring it all together into one place by aggregating it and making it discoverable. And by working with our partners like Jen and like Burke and really understanding the content, we are able to create great collections of content that really match consumers' needs. We put together content destinations for our international audiences and our Hispanic audiences, and are able to create destinations that allow consumers to go straight into what they need. It doesn't matter whether it's from a linear network partner or from an OTT app, it's all aggregated into one space to make it easier to discover, and of course, easy to access with the voice remote as well. I think the growth that you laid out up top in terms of increasing use of OTT services, we've seen that in spades across both X1 and Flex. But really, and I'd love, Jen, maybe you can talk to this a little bit more as well, the way that we're able to bring content to life by having the linear and the VOD and the OTT all joined together into fall TV collections, watch-a-thon collections, happy stuff collections. We've got a big focus, obviously, for next week, all about the inauguration, and we bring it all together in one hub for consumers. And that really goes down to our partnerships, pulling it together, and then making it easy to find. And we do see, every time we do that, we get a great lift in engagement from our customers. And that is great for us, and it's great for our partners.
Interesting. And would you say that, maybe I should know this, but do not, are you more focused on bundled channels and services and doing that curating, or are you increasingly focused on just providing access to a la carte services?
It's a combination of both, really. It all goes down to what is the piece of content and where is it available, and then how do we best surface that up to the customer. So a lot of it, certainly we want consumers to be finding value in sort of the bundle of channels that they provide. But if they've taken the time to either purchase or authenticate into an a la carte service or an app on our platform, we make sure that's included in the lineup as well. And with that, we bring we've got a wonderful editorial team that each really knows their space, whether it's kids content, news content, Latino content, and they're able to use their expertise to really curate in a unique way that helps consumers hopefully get much faster to the experience that they want.
Okay, and Jennifer, Beck sort of set you up for answering her question. Related to mine is how those challenges and opportunities with the diversity of content, diversity of platforms present themselves to you, and how do you help Beck do her job?
Yeah, I think, yeah, she said it. She did set it up well. So, you know, I think there's a proliferation of content. We sort of acknowledged that there is so much great content out there, and I think, you know, Bert can probably attest to this. Our team's job oftentimes is to go to Beck and her team and say, this is the great thing that we have coming. Can you please help us promote it? You know, that's our job. But on the flip side, or in addition to that, Beck's team comes to us and says, we have the inauguration next week. What can you do? We have Valentine's Day. You know, that's a popular time for co-watching viewing, particularly during COVID when not many people are leaving the house. What can we do to curate collections and help curate things on the Comcast platform by providing content from whether it's a Turner Network, a movie package from TNT or something from HBO, or a kid's cartoon that has a Valentine's theme, we lean into that as well. So it's those two things that kind of my team does with her team to really make that platform extremely sticky. And I think Comcast is probably the best example of curation of live and SPOT or apps that's out there. And I think that the consumer is really has benefited from that.
Sounds like next Wednesday is a double challenge, providing both the content to tune in and the escape content to, depending on.
You have that opportunity, right? That's actually right.
All right, Burke, and so you promised, and now I'm taking you up on it. So, what is your concern with the afterlife of your content on Bex and other MVPD's platforms, and how do you support what happens to your content?
Oh, thanks, Howard. It sounded so much friendlier until you used the word concern. So, but I don't know if there's a concern there. I like the questions you gave us before. It's like, what's the best thing about it? And on my notes, it's like job security for all of us, because this stuff never stops. I mean, it was once, I mentioned, look, again, our overall goal at Condista is bring the right content. Had been until Kid Street, just a broker of content that bringing in from other countries, the Spanish language networks to help sell the Spanish language package. It was fairly, in hindsight, easy as a concept because the only thing available were linear networks, and it was either broadcast or pay TV. Those are your two choices. A long time ago, I suppose. So the complication now is there are multiple platforms, and that's how the customer wants to watch it. And certain customers would like the content served a certain way. I like the stats you started us with, but the stats to me, I mean, it tells, I guess, an overall story. But in that one household, it's not 68% of people who like to flip through channels or 12% that only have streaming. It's that individual likes it a certain way, and they're an important customer for us. So how do we make sure that they're watching our content? But because we have to be places now where we weren't necessarily before. And Jen and Beck mentioned it. It's discovery. It's the curation. That you mentioned it too, Howard. With so much content available, you had referenced consumers, frustration that they have to flip around, and how do they find it? We believe there's always going to be a market for that curation. It can't just be all the content in the world dumped out there and they'll find it. Well, one, it makes it hard to produce really good content because it's not cheap. You need an audience, and whether that be a license fee that you're getting reimbursed or programmatic ads from a digital distribution or regular ads on, with agencies buying demos, I mean, there still needs to be a return on that. And again, as viewers, we all know, and I'll repeat it, you reference their frustration, how to find everything. So that curation, that the editorial is a big deal. Honestly, though, we kind of defer to our partners on the editorial, so it's not necessarily a burden on us. So we do the same thing, like Jen had mentioned. I mean, what are the best shows we have on every network? When is the start of the soccer season coming up from TYC Sports out of Argentina? When are they coming back from COVID restrictions? That's our responsibility to let the MVPDs know, and that is one part of it. Well, the afterlife of the deal and how to get the content in these different platforms, we've started to refer to it internally as our video puzzle, because all the pieces got to fit. For us, linear leads, I mean, that's how the channel started. That's how they're distributed here in the US. That's the lifeblood of all the networks. So that has to go first. So is there the right content on those linear networks 24/7 that we can ensure we're getting the audience, and therefore the MVPDs are happy because people are watching those networks that they're paying for, and therefore paying for the packages on which they're on. And we also have to keep in mind, I mean, Beck's here from Comcast. Jen mentioned it. I mean, they started a lot earlier than some other MVPDs on the process of nonlinear content and VOD. I mean, we've been riding their coattails for years. A lot of other MVPDs now are starting to do VOD, not yet to the same extent. So in a lot of our markets, it still hasn't yet moved past linear. And even in that puzzle piece of the linear, at least in Spanish, we're still working on things. And this is where Eric's company has come in to help us, HD. Not every affiliate that we have in the United States is pushing out all the Spanish language networks in HD. And then, you know, I need to go back to a client in Bogota or Mexico City or Guadalajara. Hey, we need HD on a satellite. And they're like, for who? Well, it's one affiliate with, you know, 15% of their distribution. It doesn't make sense. But technology that Zixie's brought us, now we're sending that HD signal IP feed directly to the affiliate that needs it. So again, we're taking care of that first puzzle piece. So I don't know if Jen, you guys, I don't think you guys have that issue, but in Spanish, we're still worried about HD and getting the channels out. And I'll go back to history for a second again. A few years ago, maybe the viewer just put up with it. They got HD all over the board in English. They switched to their Spanish channels. Only a few of them are in HD, and the rest of the package isn't. And I think they put up with it because there was no option. You know, these were unique pay TV channels that weren't available in broadcast. If they wanted to see, you know, that soccer game or that novella from their home country or that drama program or that movie, that was the only place to find it. Now with streaming, you know, Netflix and other SVOD platforms, they run a ton of HD in Spanish. And I think now the viewers' expectations have changed. So we've really been focused on that for the first piece. But then you need the VOD. And the VOD used to just be catch up for the linear. And we've since gone to stacking it. So, you know, our viewers on each of our MVPDs can binge an entire 80 chapter novella if they're so inclined from the first day it comes on linear. And then maybe we play around in there in partnership with our MVPDs. Maybe it goes out on VOD first. You know, it's still staying within the pay environment. The viewer can only watch it if they subscribe to the package on which the channel is. But that's another piece of the puzzle that has to be curated. It's not just putting the VOD up there. Now it's, all right, what kind of VOD? Is it timing right with what's on linear? Is it catching certain events like we've referenced the inauguration next week or Peruvian Independence Day and things of that nature?
So, so delivering to, basically what you're saying is delivering to your target audience, which is Spanish TV, Hispanic, Latinx audience, has paralleled the complexities and sophistication of delivering content.
Yes, to our benefit, maybe for us, we didn't go first. So
the other thing you brought up, Burke, I think is really important, hasn't even been talked about, but as a takeaway from this whole conversation is that word curation. I think we could translate. And I think it's an important research issue going forward is how important is curation. I think we all think that it's important, and we'll get.
I agree that, and for me, curation could be discovery, curation, editorial. It's how do you find the content and put it in front, and that's what in our view with our networks, the ones that operate in Kid Street and the ones we rep, we feel we've got to put together that puzzle first, and then also bring it to our affiliates, and that's I mentioned linear being part of that. The VOD is the next. Then it's what do we put online, on YouTube that's promotional? Is it feeding back to the networks? And now, you've got the NATPE world. And those kind of make it a little bit easier. The app world, the VOD, the linear, because it's all behind the paywall. So it's a little bit easier to have these discussions with our affiliates. Like, okay, what content goes in the app? Well, we can be duplicative with the linear network because that affiliate is also carrying the linear network and it's also behind the paywall. And both of us are benefiting from the subscription. What gets crazy is the new world, which we're at NATPE. A year ago at NATPE, people were bringing me free opportunities. Hey, Mark, there's this platform. We can get 10 of your channels on free. I'm like, free? We're pay TV. We don't do free. And I don't agree with that anymore. The fast world is an important piece of the puzzle. So how do you can maintain that value of the linear network? It's VOD and the app, and now get that brand and some of the content out there in the fast world where our affiliates are still happy to pay us for the linear and the viewer is still happy to pay for the linear, knowing that free is available. So
hey, Burke, I want to follow up on something that you said because it just reminded me of something that we're doing right now, and it touches on linear, VOD, and the app. And it's working really well with Comcast because, so the situation is this: we have a show called Snowpiercer that debuted on TNT in 2020. I think it was one of the top, if not the top, cable drama in 2020. And that first season was on TNT. The second season is coming onto TNT in January this month, end of this month. But that first season is actually going to HBO Max. So the catch up is on HBO Max, which is, I mean, this is sort of the perfect flywheel for us, where it's within our own ecosystem. We can promote it that way through Comcast and X1. And you know, it drives subscriptions to HBO Max, but it also, people go back to TNT to watch the second season. And it's really a great example of how this can all work together in a platform seamlessly.
And as a focus group of one, it worked in our household because we just started watching it on HBO Max, which I have as a subscriber to my MVPD. So the circle does work.
Love it.
Yeah, it works really, really well. And you hit on a great example there, Jen, too. But there are a number of different examples where, you know, you can just put all of the pieces together. And I think, Burke, to sort of borrow your phrase, part of our big challenge, sort of as a team of partners, is to make sure we don't show up that puzzle to the consumer. You know, our business models are evolving really quickly. To your point, like FAST wasn't anywhere near what it is today a year ago. That's been an extraordinary journey through 2020 and will continue at pace. Our business models are evolving. There's more content than ever. And yet what we all need to focus on is making it easy for the consumer. And that really does come down to the magic words of curation, discovery, aggregation, just thinking about, how do I, as a viewer, want to engage in this? And if you can get that right, then I think all of the engagement, the monetization, getting consumers into your apps, that all flows from making it easy and enjoyable.
So who took over the moderator?
Oh, we just kept
I almost dove in, Howard, but they did it. They naturally evolved, and you missed the actual high point of the entire discussion. But
Okay. So did Eric, did you get to make your presentation about it?
I haven't done my pitch because these fine people have just done the best setup I could have ever asked for. So we were just talking about, you know, larger pieces and the evolution of, you know, as Burke tees up, like this is a very interesting ecosystem of content, of how it's acquired, curated, distributed amongst this group. And so again, as the lone technology voice coming into this, it's what do you do with that? So in a technical world, we look at the active curation as how do we manage quality of the transport? Things that you just say, make sure my signals are fine, I assume them. How do I manage my quality of service? It has to be up. As Berg pointed out, what was once the old model of expecting just VOD or satellite, et cetera, the digital expectation exceeds what you would have had in traditional. I mean, you're still, yes, in the third world, we might have a lot of SD, but we've moved on from HD, 4K is already being delivered. It is going D2C to sets. You're chasing a very ever-moving consumer, and you need to do it with your core brands, your core availability of content. And watching how television, which was a very static business model and technical model for 70, 80 years, and has just been upended in the last 10 and 15, and everyone now has to find a very mobile consumer who's cord cutting, moving, but still wants things. And as we were talking about earlier, there is VOD and consumer fatigue. You go into any set of VOD UI and you look at your partner and say, well, what are you getting? What do you get? I don't know. I know what to do. Where is my linear programming? I just want to relax. I mean, Zixi is, you know, linear programming is dead. Long live linear programming. And then it needs to be made available to everyone. So while we Zixi are a B2B model, we enable that all of these fine folks can have everything they need available to deliver that QoE to the consumer, engage that consumer, and ultimately on the premise for us. So Zixi, while software and we are managing, I mean, we touch operations, we touch master control and digital knocks. We are launching AI and ML initiatives because you're going to have to be intelligent software. So under the premise that the consumer edge will be curated and these fine folks will know what their consumers want, that implies that the back end is also intelligent and can acquire all the content that it needs to do in ways that were better than old television ever was. And that is really kind of an interesting cycle to where we were in this, in that the evolution of the consumer's move is going to be mirrored by I'm in the middle of it, the evolution of the infrastructure in the B2B parts, where these partners are all seamlessly connecting. People don't want to know how they have to do that. And with AWS and Google and Azure and everyone virtualizing, you are now have like a universal set of content that can be packaged and put in many different ways. And digital carve-out rights have allowed for regional sports programming to change. The way I cover an event, the way I cover news, the way I can handle rights and manage that. I can take everything from a soccer game in Argentina to a Northwest Sports. I can cover news events. I can do behind the scenes. I mean, we were approached to even look like, how would we cover the inauguration? And what happens, and we'll talk a little on the finish, but you've got 5G and other pieces. If the content was already growing exponentially, it's going in that proverbial hockey stick in a way, which is a tremendous opportunity for all of these folks to find ways to enhance their customers' experience. And that customer's experience is going to be predicated on what you do to deliver it. So you really can't separate the tech from it anymore.
Very interesting, yes. And I've also been involved in conversations where I've been blind to what happens in between the provider and the operator to enable AI and to enable customer interaction with. And are you just carrying all this metadata, et cetera, or do you have processes in your software that deal with?
We carry all the audit, like, so there's a lot of, without getting too nerdy here, but you've got everything from network layers, you've got the transfer, you have the things that make you have a pretty picture. But within that, there is audio quality, there is video quality, and there is a ton of metadata that is captioning, metadata that can be tags and descriptors, metadata that triggers automation, metadata that actually does ad insertion, because as Burke was referencing, you know, fast networks, tags, like the way that one monetizes content has shifted as radically as the way one distributes content has shifted as radically as to where the consumer you're trying to get all this stuff to is.
All right, so listen, I've got, we're going to run out of time soon, and I'd like to get some closing remarks from each one of you. So Jennifer, perhaps you could start, and as we reach the close of this session, what are your final comments on the relationship between the programmer, content producer, and your MVPD clients, and how, of course, your content is delivered?
Sure. I'll sort of follow up on something that Eric said, because it's sort of the basis of everything that we're doing. And it reminds me also of some things that we went through with Comcast in late 2020. And that is that the technology has to work. So when we launched HBO Max back in May as an app, there was a minimum level of service that had to be there for us to launch, and it was there, and we've continued to iterate and expand upon that. As we went to launch the app on the X1 platform, that was also something that we were super focused on, as they were. And so I just, want to emphasize how important it is, in addition to all those things like curation and discovery, and I think Beck said it in her opening, the voice remote, which I'm a huge fan of, that underlying technology needs to be super solid, because the customer or the consumer can't be frustrated, because there are too many other places that work where they can go and get a great experience. And so I think that's so important to us, and something that we, have to focus on in this new world and with our partners. And so I think, that's certainly a focus of my team in the coming year, as we expand, particularly HBO Max, to other distribution partners.
Yes, and we take that tech layer for granted too often. And well, Beck, just quickly, so the consumer experience of this video product that you're delivering, you think it's a good one? Is it? Are we delivering high quality signal? And
yeah, absolutely. You know, we are very proud of the quality of the X1 and Flex experience, and huge credit, Jen and the HBO team worked so well with the Xfinity team to bring the HBO Max app to life. I couldn't agree more that sort of the technology is just being intuitive and working for the customer lets all of the content come to life in such an extraordinary way. And I think, you know, if I was going to close on one thing, it really is just the power of the partnerships that we're all fostering between companies. And, you know, what helps my platform and my customer is having great content. And that's all through these partnerships here today.
Yeah, it does seem like the MVPDs are stepping up to the plate in terms of delivering the technology and the standalone services in a very interesting way to consumers. A very bright future for young viewers, particularly advancing in their stage of life and back to the big screen, the connected TV, to that managed service platform. And Burke, do you have a closing comment for us?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Howard. I thought we had more time though. I didn't realize we were wrapping up. So
I think we are. I have a little watch going here. I think
you're in charge, Howard. That's no problem. Yeah, the sky is not falling. That's the message. You got even, you know, the news reports come out. You get the headlines. Even some people in our small group are, well, you know, subs are going down. It's changing. We got to change it. Yes, it's changing, but the sky is not falling. Thankfully, people love watching TV. Video ain't going anywhere. It's our job to, and we have good content. We have great content. People like to watch it. How we deliver it to the customer might change a little bit, but they're still out there looking for it. And every time there's some negative headline about something going on in the pay TV industry in the US, soon thereafter, if you look for it, there's an equally positive piece of information that's going out there. It may not be obvious. It may not be right in front of us. It may not be the same thing we've done the last couple of years, but it's there. So thankfully, in the business that we're in, the consumer's appetite for video is essentially insatiable. So I'm very excited about what we have to do for the next few years.
Right, and how they get it is going to be increasing.
How they get it is changing for sure. But they still want to get it somehow. And you're right. They're going to watch it on a screen somewhere. Maybe it's the size and mobility of that screen that changes, but thankfully, consumers still want to watch it.
And Eric, we're going to give the final word to tech. Is there anything where on the horizon that's going to disrupt, enhance, or change the way we manage content? What are we anticipating?
We're from what we see in our world, we are anticipating a lot. I mean, as we just said, you've got consumer behavior moving, as Burke referenced, you know, screens and mobility are changing. You know, Jen has to look after an HBO Max in a crowded and competitive marketplace. Beck has to look after how is she going to take a very large scale platform and enable it to service a wide range of customers and the contracts and the pieces you have across that. You know, from an academic perspective and just from 25 years, I understand that the virtualization and the ability to aggregate all of this content and then allow it to be effectively universally distributed is critical. And the clients and the customer, the audience, their expectations have gone up, not down. Younger Gen Z wants 4K to their iPad and not less than, and it will be perfect and there will be no buffering. And cable and people want to have that, and you're going to need to mix your favorite grandmother with your young niece and nephew and figure out how all that works. And in order to do that, you're going to need the technology. But what I think is interesting is the technology part is critical in our world, not self-serving, but software defined is the only way you're really going to do that, which is why I have relationships with everyone on this panel. But fundamentally, it's going to change how the business deals you cut and the way that you relate to all your clients. And things like 5G are going to happen, and they're going to change how you make content and distribute it. And satellites will be put under pressure, and CDNs will have to respond. And all of that means that the content owners aren't worried about the technology platform. They're worried how they stay engaged to their audience. And that's why I think that the virtualization actually helps you become more nimble, more agile, and ability to truly scale and watch how do you manage these large scale audiences as they migrate into places like autonomous vehicles and things that are all coming down the pike, so that I can sit and click and watch Game of Thrones while I'm going to the airport or whatever it is I need to do. So those are things that I'm going to want to see. And if I'm there in my middle-aged, you know what the new generation is going to do. I don't even rate on the Nielsen ratings as of next year, so that explains a lot. So I do think that it's very interesting time. I think that we enhance it. Technology makes it literally perfect. Like, we're moving up to 6 and 7 nines. We're going to have the ability to scale channels from 4K to 8K, which sounds crazy today, but it won't be in 3 and 4 years. And you're going to acquire soccer games in South America and show them globally in ways that you would never have had the money and budget to do before. So finally, then what's it disrupt? A lot of big businesses. And you've got 70 billion in US broadcast dollars in North America, 250 worldwide, a lot of subscriptions, a lot of retrans dollars, and all of that is going to have to stay very technology nimble to not have the larger media companies in this space eat away at their market share and their dollars.
Thank you. And we have come to the end of our session. And I want to thank our panelists, Rebecca Heap from Comcast, thank you. Bert Berendez from Condista, Jennifer Mirgarad from Warner Media, and Eric Bolton from Zixi. Thank you for sharing your insights on the MVPDs and the business of delivering and managing content to buyers and viewers worldwide. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Howard.
Good
Thanks,
morning.
Howard.
Good day.
Thank you.
It's my birthday! This 2021, Dish Nation is turning 10.
Alec Baldwin's wife, Ilaria, or maybe we should start calling her by her real name, Hillary, isn't from Spain, y'all. She is from Boston.
Instead of going, hello, Ilaria, I can go, hello, Hillary. How are you?
Bringing you all the celebrity and entertainment news you crave.
Ozzy Osbourne's counting his blessings. He told reporters he regrets cheating on his wife. He said,
You cannot change anyone. Do you know how hard it is to change yourself? Sometimes the biggest takeaway is the lesson that you learn.
Divorce court brought the faith.
Where I was. Nope. Not only is it problematic, but it's also illegal. I mean, Juan. Step out of my courtroom, ma'am. You gotta go out of my courtroom. Look at me in my eyes. I want you to blink twice if you need help. Today's a new day. You can start again. That's my judgment.
Es muy importante el tema de la concentración, además de socializar con los compañeros y las compañeras, también buscar un poco en algún momento estar tranquilo para repasar tu letra, para guardar la energía, para concentrar y después salir a improvisar, a trabajar en equipo, por supuesto, pero en algún momento está bueno achicar un poquito para cuidar la energía de uno que no se disperse tanto.